Hi, my name's Kevin, and today I'm going to make a green chili pork guisado. Start with about a 4 or 5 pound pork shoulder. Everything in this recipe is scalable. You can make more or less if you'd like. Cut off all the extra fat that pork shoulders normally come with, and then we'll cut them into about inch thick steaks, and then we'll cut them into about inch cubes. I wouldn't go any smaller than this because we're going to brown it, but we don't want it to cook all the way through. That'll come later when we're stewing it with all these other delicious ingredients together. After you've got everything cubed, take about a tablespoon of kosher salt, sprinkle it over all the pork and massage it in really good. I know this looks like a lot of salt, but it's the only salt we're going to add in the whole dish. Next, we're going to get the salsa ready. We're going to take those tomatillos, peel them all, twist them off of the stem there. They're going to have a little bit of a sticky residue on the outside, so what I like to do is put them in a strainer, take them to the sink, and rinse that off. It's not really important to get it totally off to me. It does add a little bitter flavor, people say, but I've never noticed it. Anyways, we'll cut them into halves if they're smaller. Be sure to get those stems out. Quarters if they're larger. Put them on the baking tray, the foil-lined baking tray. Take an onion and we'll quarter it. And it's not necessary to get this exact or anything because this is all going to go in the blender in just a little bit. After we've cut them in quarters, peel them, add them to the baking tray along with the serranos. I've only got 3 here. You can add as many or as little as you like. I'm going to leave the seeds on. You can take them off. I happen to like the extra spice, but if you don't like it, go ahead and take it off or scoop them out. Anyways, add all that to the baking tray, sort of spread it out, even it out. We'll put it in, I put it in under the broiler for about 10 minutes until it looks about like this, all steamy and yummy and all those delicious crispy parts on it. We'll add all of that to a blender and along with any of the juices that were on the tray. Don't leave those out. Those are the delicious parts. We'll blend this up until it's pretty smooth texture. This is going to be the base of the guisado, so you can leave it chunky if you'd like, but I like it pretty smooth. I don't know. On this high-powered blender, it took about 20-30 seconds, but just as long as it takes you to get to where you want it to be. Looks good about here, so I'll take that and set it aside. Meanwhile, I'll heat up a large Dutch oven with some neutral oil, and working in batches, I'll cover the bottom with the pork, brown it. Once it gets a little brown on one side and releases pretty easy from the pan, take that, put it aside in a bowl. Notice all those delicious brown bits on the bottom. We're going to let that build up, and that's going to add a lot of flavor to the stew. So put in the next batch of pork, fill up the bottom. I had to do this in my pan about 4 times to do all of it without stacking too much pork in the pan. You don't want to do that because then it'll steam and you won't get this delicious brown goodness on the bottom. After we're done with that, we'll add the cumin seeds to the hot oil. Stir that around and let that infuse the oil. Don't leave the cumin out. Makes it. Pour in, the pan was a little hot. Pour in a little bit of the chicken stock and use a spatula to take all of those delicious brown bit fawn from the bottom. Came up pretty easy with a little too much heat. And oh yeah, all those little meaty parts too that were left behind. After we've done that, we will, there's a little rough part there, but you can see that it got pretty clean. Pour back in all of the pork with the accumulated juices. About a tablespoon of freshly ground black pepper. The green salsa we just made. A little water in there to rinse out what was left in the container, the blender. The rest of the chicken stock. Stir it up nice so everything is nicely combined. Bring it up to a boil. And while we're waiting to bring that up to a boil, we'll go back and attend our delicious Pueblo roasted peppers. I love these things. If you don't have these, or you have some other roasted green chilies, go ahead and use those. We'll sort of cut the caps off, de-seed them as good as you can. I never got really perfect at that. But for me, it doesn't have to be perfect. Some people are a little more picky about that. After we've de-seeding as much as we can, I like to take all of those juices on, because they are pretty juicy because they've been frozen, strain them out, put those juices in the bowl where you're going to add the rest of these chopped up green peppers. Oh, look at all that juice left over. Don't want to waste that. There we go. We'll add our green chilies to the bowl. Clean up a little bit, and now we will cube these russet potatoes. I used kind of medium small ones. You can add, there's 4 of these, you can add big ones or less, depending on your taste for potatoes. I like to use russet potatoes because I like that extra starch in the stew to thicken it up just a little bit. You can feel free to use new potatoes. After you've got all of these queued up to about 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch pieces, add all those to the bowl, and we'll head back over to the stove and add the whole kit and caboodle right into your Dutch oven. You got to start with the big pan. There's a lot to go in here. Anyways, we'll mix that all up really well. Let it sit on the stove until it comes up to a boil. Then put the lid back on it and put it in a 250 degree oven for about 2-3 hours. Got to open the pan away because it has just condensed to this lovely deliciousness. Pork finished cooking in here, and all the juices got released into the stew. All of the chilies have melded together, but there's one more little bit of flavor that I like to add to this. Take a little bit of the broth. Don't get any of the meat, just the broth. 2 or 3 ladles, because we're going to use that to blend with the 2 bunches of cilantro. Take the leaves off. You can use the whole thing, including stems. It was just that I think I might have got a little more than I wanted, so I didn't quite use all of it. Pour that blended mixture, once it got really fine, that bright green, into the pot. Don't want to waste any of it. Stir that in, and that lovely freshness will add a great punch to the stew. A lot of people like to cook it in, but I like it fresh cilantro rather than cooked in. Add a couple of ladles to a nice bowl. I like to add, a little more black pepper, fresh ground black pepper. A few more fresh cilantro leaves. Some Mexican crema if you've got it. If you had some fresh limes to squeeze in right now, would be a good time. Oh, you wouldn't believe this stew is so luscious and delicious. I actually made this big batch of stew to share with my neighbors, and this video is to show you how I did it. Oh man, this is so good on a chilly fall day. That spice just melted together. Savory, it's a little bit of sweetness from the cilantro and freshness. Oh, delicious. You got to try it.